Welcome to my channel. I'm Elizabeth Liz Machette, and today is a full moon forecast in Aquarius. And joining me today is my colleague and friend, Justin Crockett-Elzy. Welcome, Justin. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Liz. I'm excited to talk about this full moon this week.
Yeah, the last full moon, and then we'll be into eclipses.
Yeah,
Time
exactly. Eclipse season.
So, Justin Crockett-Elzy is archetypal and Jyotish astrologer, teacher, author, and seer. The best way to contact Justin is through his email at justin.elzy@gmail.com. I'm an astrologer, author, and intuitive. And a good way to reach me is through my website, alightpath.com. So we're in Aquarius, the Aquarius full moon. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Aquarius energy. It's of the fixed modality, and some keywords for the fixed modality are hold, maintain, and middle of the season. And the ruling planet is Saturn, the traditional planet, and Uranus, the modern ruler. And it's of the air element, adaptable, thoughtful, logical, and curious. And the mantra is I know. And Justin, will you share the keywords and cautions with us?
Sure. And so some of the keywords are it's theoretical or idealistic, abstract, and progressive thinking and idealistic. And then, of course, the caution would be sometimes antisocial or dissociative behaviors, emotionless, or it comes across as aloof to others. So that's some of the keywords.
Thanks for sharing. So we're at the Aquarius full moon that happened yesterday, July 29th at 7:36 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, and the chart is cast for Seattle, Washington. And I've put in a lot of the aspects to the moon. It's conjunct Pluto and Juno, sextile to Neptune, square to Chiron, forming a T-square, trine Uranus, opposite Sun, Jupiter, and Hygeia, and sesquiquadrate to Mars and Venus, forming a Thor's hammer. So, do you want to talk about any of the aspects now, or wait till we get into it?
I think I love this slide, so I think we could just talk about these here, if you don't mind. But the one thing, Liz, that really jumped out with me is these two groupings of those conjunctions opposite one another. And specifically, of course, we know the full moon is there, the moon opposite the sun. But the one that kind of jumped out to me was the Jupiter opposite Pluto, Jupiter Pluto opposition. And I was thinking about certain themes that this could bring up. And because we know that Jupiter rules the ninth house traditionally in astrology, which is, belief systems, religion, philosophy, government, politics. Um, Being that it's opposite Pluto there, this could be, and because we also have Hygeia involved in the mix, and Juno, which is a relationship thing going on here. Um, it could be this period. I think it's just really indicative that we're still going to be um, a lot of people disagreeing about things. With Pluto opposite Jupiter there, which is and of course in the Jyotish. The nakshatra that the sun is in is ruled by this deity Brihaspati, which is Jupiter, the guru, which represents knowledge. So there's this thing where with Pluto opposite Jupiter, the guru, Brihaspati, knowledge here, that people try to get other people to their point of view here. So there seems to be a lot, that's really sort of a dynamic there that's going to continue with our relationships. And because it's two fixed signs, I think, which can be very individualistic, I think this is going to affect a lot of our continued effect of a lot of relationships, but also, because Jupiter represents leadership. This can be a time where we do see fall from graces based on how leaders may not be humble. And so there can be some changes with Jupiterian themes, one of those being leaders, and um, some falls that bring some level of humility. And so that's the one aspect that jumped out to me. What do you think about that?
Well, I like that you brought that up because those planets conjunct the sun or the moon, like with Pluto conjunct the moon, it's like our emotions around power dynamics. And then
Yeah.
opposite that Jupiter, it's like we could have some different belief systems. So there could be a tug of war, or you don't believe how I believe. So how's that going to work out?
Right. No, you're exactly
Very
saying what I was
positive
saying.
way,
Yeah.
or it might be quite the struggle. So this moon, there's a lot going on in this chart, and Jupiter conjunct the sun. It's so close. They're just a few minutes apart, so it's like they're fairly tight conjunctions. So I like them when the conjunctions are tighter. So I would say this full moon is dynamic in many ways.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
So any other parts that, because I know that we have the T square in on another slide and the Thor's hammer on another slide and the cradle. So is there anything else you wanna discuss, with
No,
this?
no, I was just pointing out the one big one that jumped out to me there. So.
Perfect. Okay. So we're gonna go into the nakshatras that Justin's gonna share with us, so I'll let you take it away, Justin.
Okay, so we always look at for those watching, we always look at the lunar mansions, which the sun and moon are in during a full moon, because it does give us some deeper level of understanding of this sun and moon in the Leo and Aquarius. So the sun lunar mansion is in Pushya, which is in the third pada, and there's always four padas or four sections or Navamsas. And so it's in the third pada, which here we're seeing the keyword themes is around knowledge and the Shakti powers to quickly obtain one's objectives. The ruling planet is Saturn. So there's a Saturnian field to this sun also. And also, some astrologers will say that a Jupiter opposition to Pluto can be like a Jupiter Saturn conjunction, right? And so Saturn is actually playing a role here. We know it rules. We know it's the rules the sign that the moon is in. So we're just seeing an interplay here of ideas. So this Jupiter lunar mansion, it can be is ruled by Saturn. The ruling deity, as I was saying earlier, is Brihaspati, which is the high priest of the gods, or the guru, or Jupiter, and represents knowledge or the accumulation of knowledge. But it's about nourishment, because this is the star of nourishment. And so it's about nourishing with knowledge. And then again, this gets back to the Jupiter opposite Pluto, where people may try to push their ideas onto other people, proselytizing, because I want to nourish you. So I'm going to get you to my point of view there, or save you, or whatever you want. But the symbol here is the cow's udder. And of course, we know that's the part of the body where the calves get nourishment. And so the basis above is above below here is creatures to be healed and healing therapies. So this is, again, this Jupiter is about knowledge, and it's trying to nourish or convince others to its point of view, or nourish with knowledge. That's why during this sun and moon, one of the favorable activities actually is learning, is taking classes, is doing a public talk or teaching, because this can be a very positive or auspicious time to teach a class and nurture others with knowledge. So now the moon's lunar mansion is in Shravana, and in the first pada, which is a fire. The first pada is always fire here, and the ruling deity here is Vishnu. So one of the things that is indicative of Vishnu, which is the god, the preserver of the universe, out of the three-headed gods, or the three gods that are from the godhead of Hindu philosophy: Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. Vishnu is the one that tries to preserve things. And Vishnu, in this particular Nakshatra Shravana, it's called the star of the listening ear or the learning ear, because if a person has um, one of their planets around these degrees, then they have really good listening skills. And there tend to be people where people will, um, you know, uh, be a person that people will rely on, and to cry on their shoulder. And it's also a good lunar mansion for teachers and counselors. The symbol is an ear. And of course, the basis above and below is seeking path. So a person with this nakshatra or lunar mansion is able to intuitively help people pick the right path in life, because they listen to their problem and they give them direction. So that's sort of related to Vishnu here. Now, the ruling planet is the moon, and of course, this is the moon's lunar mansion. And this is also one thing that's really great about this. The Shakti power of this lunar mansion is the power to connect with others. Okay, and so it also gives faculty of speech. So a lot of times people that have this lunar mansion or something in this lunar mansion will be really good with languages, know more than one language, and have this really, they can actually be very good teachers. So as we see here, both this sun and this moon's lunar mansions are very complementary from an air sign perspective, and transfer of knowledge, speaking, connecting with others. And I think this again just highlights that this is going to play into relationships because of that Juno, um, that's right next to Pluto there, and of course the Jupiter opposite Pluto. So that's the two lunar mansions, and gives us a little bit more insight that again, this is a good favorable time to learn, to read, to teach, and to actually help people solve some problems.
Well, thank you for sharing the nakshatras with us. I always enjoy hearing about them and learn a little bit each month.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
have some favorable activities this month for us.
Yeah, so because this is Jupiter and Sun conjunction, it's a good time to begin new ventures. It's also a good time for medical treatment, counseling, as we were talking before, studying languages, learning, travel, um, religious and spiritual activities because of the Aquarius moon, of course, healing and nurturing activities, financial planning, and meditation and yoga. These are just not a not the whole list, but just a few highlighted things that are good during this time. I would say I personally feel that the studying languages and learning and the religious and spiritual activities takes a little bit higher precedence over the other activities.
Well, and maybe getting out there and trying a new group or something for doing an act of humanitarian volunteering or support of those types of things.
Absolutely, especially because Aquarius. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, we're going to take a look at the Sabian symbols. They were channeled in 1925 by Elsie Wheeler with the assistance of Mark Edmund Jones. And there's one symbol for each 360 degrees of the zodiac. And so the saying makes or gives us an image to work with. So we're going to look at the moon degrees first, and we cover 3 of them, the degree before, the degree of, and the next degree. So what's leading up, what's happening now, and what's coming next. So can you start us off, Justin?
Sure. So as we look at the moon, we start with Aquarius 5 degrees, and the symbol or the vignette we got here is a council of ancestors is seen implementing the efforts of a young leader, and the keynote here is root foundation of past performances, which power sustain whichever decision is made in the crisis of an individual. Basically, what we're saying is that. when decisions are made, there's going to be sort of a reliance upon precedents of how things have been done in the past. And spiritually, again, this is a very spiritual degrees here, that the people will be supported by guides in what they're trying to accomplish.
And then the next degree, Aquarius 6, a masked figure performs ritualistic acts in a mystery play. The keynote, the individual's involvement in long established patterns of activity aiming at the release of collective power. And so some transpersonal responsibility.
And then Aquarius 7 degrees is a child is seen being born out of an egg. This is, we see here is the emergence of new mutations according to the great rhythms of the cosmos. And the key phrase here is emergence of a global person for the new age.
So would you like to sum these up, Justin?
Well, you know, yeah, this is really close to a couple of things in my chart. This is really about. I think I really want to highlight the Aquarius 6 degrees, which is about transpersonal responsibility. I think this really shows that why this is a moon to do spiritual activities on, because when you have degrees around this, this is a time when you maybe have inflection point about what your spiritual purpose in life is, transpersonal responsibility, and knowing that you can focus on that and come to some inflection point about what goals you need to do in order to accomplish that spiritual responsibility.
Thank you. So we're going to look at the Sabian symbols for the sun. A Leo 5, the degree leading up to rock formations tower over a deep canyon. The keynote is the structuring power of elemental forces during the long cycle of planetary evolution. Impersonality.
And then the next one, Leo 6, is a conservative old fashioned lady is confronted by a hippie girl. And here the keynote here is the need to transcend our subservience to fashion in morals as well as in clothes. It's really sort of the subservience, reevaluating our subservience to anything within our culture and our civilization. Key phrase here is the relativity of social values.
And then Leo 7, the constellations of stars shine brightly in the night sky. Basic spiritual values which refer to man's common humanity and to all enduring archetypes. And the key word is permanence. So how would you sum these three up?
Well, back to the show we did just this last week on the nodes in Leo and Aquarius, I'm reminded again here with these Sabian symbols about how um, the Leo is learning to be less self-centered here and focus more on the social values of the collective, have that impersonality, not so focusing on self, but also focusing on common humanity here. And I think that's what it's again kind of supporting that moon, which is really about an inflection point about like you mentioned earlier, one of the great activities is working, doing something humanitarian right now and volunteering and focusing on our humanity and humility versus focusing just on ourselves.
Well said. So moving along. So here's the chart again with the ascendant being Leo, and that's marked in orange, and the sun rules Leo, so that there's an arrow there. The midheaven is 10 degrees Taurus with a green circle around it, and it's ruled by Venus in Virgo with the green arrow. And the sun is at 6 degrees Leo, ruled by the sun in Leo, and the moon is at 12 degrees Aquarius, ruled by Saturn in Aries or Uranus in Gemini. So is there anything you would like to comment on?
No, I think well, yeah, I would just, I think I love how you put where the planets, the rulerships are here. because again, it just highlights the importance of certain planets in this with this full moon, besides the sun and the moon. But we also see Venus, for those of us on the West Coast, and of course Saturn is also playing a role here as well.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to start with the aspect of the T square. The sun and moon are square to Chiron. So what would you say about that? And there's also conjunct the sun is Jupiter and Hygeia, and conjunct that moon is Juno and Pluto. So they're involved also.
Yeah. So again, I think that because Chiron is in those early degrees of Taurus, and again, I'm kind of, wow. There's several themes here. Moon squaring Chiron is really uh, just can be a wound with emotions around our resources there. And then, of course, with Jupiter squaring Chiron, can be that can actually bring some level of tension with and magnify the effects of Chiron in Taurus, which is again some difficulty with economy and resources. I think also, though, that as you've mentioned before, squares are an opportunity for change. And I think also that they can also, we can benefit by being stronger with our resources by um, being vulnerable and open to Jupiter and the Pluto and Moon and the Sun with this. And I think the thing with Juno there, again, brings up the relationships here, that there may be things that come up in our relationships around money and resources as well, where we have to kind of face some issues there.
Well, and if you just did it real basic with the sun and moon, it could be our emotions and our ego and what do we need to work on or heal in that area? What adjustment needs to be made to make life easier?
Yeah, I agree.
Anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I think, one of the things that's important to let people know, and it's interesting too, that Chiron's at the 0 degrees Taurus, which in the Sabian symbols is, and anything is the sort of the ace of the suit here. And so that first degree of Taurus is all about attuning to our environment, right? How we live in our environment is to live in harmony with it and attune to it. And that, because that's at 0 degrees Taurus. And I think that because when Chiron's in Taurus, it can be a wound of neglect or need with our Maslow hierarchy of needs, or anything where we don't feel like we're safe or secure. And I think that it is kind of, because it's a 0 degrees Taurus, it's giving us some technique there, that if we can step back, let go of some of the fear, and attune to our environment, and live within the with the planet here, that we can actually overcome that fear of scarcity, or not having enough.
Exactly. Thank you. So we're going to look at the Taurus hammer. So we have Mars square Venus, and their quincunx, or no, sesquiquadrate to the moon, Pluto, and Juno. But I'd like you to talk about that Mars Venus square first, if you don't mind.
Sure, sure. Well, I always, Venus, of course, as we know, is about our desires and our affections. And then, of course, Mars is about our effort and action. But Mars is in the sign of Gemini, which is communications, and Venus is in the sign where it's the critic, right? And so I think that this, we're going to definitely have some tension between what we want and the action that we're taking. So it's almost like our heart is not in alignment with our action here. And so I think this could be also some difficult communications, because that is, of course, Mercury rules both those signs, Gemini and Virgo. And so I think we could have some situations where, in relationships, where one person desires one thing and the other person desires to take action. But it it actually can be a very good thing, because uh, Virgo squaring Gemini brings a really smart personality, intelligent, with questioning things. So this can be a point where we reevaluate some of the things we desire and whether we really should say anything about it to others or take action.
And then there's sesquiquadrate, that Juno, Pluto, and Moon. So, you know, a sesquiquadrate is 135 degrees. And so Juno's about relationships, Pluto can be about power and transformation, and Moon is our emotions. So it's kind of like adding with what Justin said, and then adding the points about relationships and power and our emotions. So um, it's like be kind to yourself, but be kind to others too as you work through all that. And you might see it around you. It might not even be you involved personally, but you might see it around you. So it's just like take a breath and it'll all work out.
You know, can I mention, and I agree totally with you, and can I mention just another thing here briefly? You know how we're inundated with so much information now? And I think that, a lot of times Mars and Gemini, in my experience is, it's like the person that you're trying to talk to them and they're always on their social media, because Mars and Gemini needs a lot of mental stimulation. And of course, in a moon in Aquarius is very sort of like needing to kind of disassociate a little bit, or you know put some boundaries up. And I think this is a really good uh, uh, aspect here of reevaluating the information we're taking in, because that Venus can be critical about, well, maybe I don't really should be reading this anymore or listening to this show. Or this can be really give us a really good um, energy towards setting some healthy boundaries with information that's thrown at us every day.
Yeah, with that Mars and Gemini, I would say the information's coming quick, but using that Venus and Virgo to like kind of like dig through it and like, is this really fact? Is this really true? Or, somebody just threw it out there. And
Yeah.
also, conjunct Mars is Ceres is involved in this Taurus hammer too. So, anything else you'd like to say?
No, 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 no. So what do you think? With Thor's hammer, we know that Thor, the whole concept of Thor here is about this hammer that was used as a tool, a weapon, but also, to get what he wants. So is that way you would see this that it could be used as a tool?
Well, yes, it can be used for a tool, but it's like things can uh, get a little intense, but it's just like stay calm to work through it because sometimes it's like you don't have all the information or you have too much information or you're too emotionally upset about it to process it. And it's just like,
Hmm,
take a breath and step back and then process it. And because it's all about adjustments, I always believe so.
I agree. I agree. I agree with you totally.
So then some other pattern we have here is a cradle configuration, which has been in effect for about 10 to 15 days already, a couple weeks already. So it's still within orb. So we have Juno, Pluto, Moon, sextile Neptune, and trine Pluto. So that's forming a mini grand trine that connects in with Sun, Jupiter, Hygeia, sextile to Uranus, and trine Neptune. And then Uranus and Neptune are sextile to each other. So it's kind of like a cradle or a basket. And I know that some other people are calling it different things, but I don't remember what some of the people were calling it. Um, but it's a pretty interesting configuration because it's all connected together. And then there's also the opposition of that sun and moon to tie it all in together. But with the trines and the sextiles, it's um, a flow that these planets are all connecting together and working in a positive manner. So we've talked about some things that might be a little intense or that need some change, but then we have this other energy that's kind of assisting to help it move more smoothly and flow. What would you like to say, Justin?
Well, I always like to remind sometimes listeners that trines are neutral too. They're not. They can be just as much for um, um, things we need to work on versus positive things. And I find this interesting because all these aspects here that you've identified are all air and fire. The Leo to the Aquarius, the Leo to the Aries, the Aquarius to the Gemini. It's all air and fire here. So it's like communications and thinking, and with a strong fiery intensity here. And of course, I think the the Pluto Uranus trine, which has been with us for a little bit, right? So, this is a longer period. And I think this, again, is really indicative of all the chaos and changes we're going through. And that's going to continue. I think the sun trining Neptune really highlights, again, back to some themes about Jupiter and leadership. I think this highlights leaders, because that's a trine that's highlighting leaders and authorities within the collective, which is Neptune. So I think this is just a really indicative of how a lot of what we see from an organizational standpoint, if you want to look at it that way, that we've got a lot of powerful leaders in the world today. They're really making a big impact. I think that, again, this just really highlights what we were talking earlier about uh, what information's coming in, how are we communicating or taking in information in the collective, and how intensely are we um, what are we dealing with that? How are we using the power of information and the power of communications, even our own? This could really highlight that if you're a teacher or a podcaster like yourself, that your communications could be more powerful right now, depending upon where these planets, this cradle pattern shows up in your chart.
Absolutely. And the planets with the trines and sextiles, it's like the planets are communicating or working with each other, even though it might not be easy to work through whatever is being worked through, but it's like there's still some cooperation there. So that's
Yeah.
I think of that as more of a positive, that since there is some kind of cooperation happening. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's all I would say.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to talk about the lunar phase family or gestation cycle. It goes along with the 4 lunar phases: new, first quarter, full, and last quarter. Um, each month we have a new to full moon to a new moon again, and then we use this pattern, and each phase lasts 9 months, so it's a 3-year pattern. And Pessin discovered this in her work that she has done, and so we're going to take a look at we're in the middle of that with this full moon. So the new phase began January 29th of 25 at 9 degrees Aquarius. The first quarter, so if you journal or you have a really good memory, you can maybe think back what was going on around that time. Did you start something new? Did you start a new job? Did you move to a new location? how's that working out? And then the first quarter, lots of times is where you make those adjustments, and that was October 29th of 25 at 6 degrees Aquarius. And then we're at the full phase July 29th at 6 degrees Aquarius. So, whatever you started at that time should be manifesting something. And then the third quarter phase is April 28th of 27 at 8 degrees Aquarius. So lots of times that third quarter is, are you going to continue, or are you going to bring it to completion, or it didn't really work out, or what's going to happen? Any comment you'd like to make?
No, no, none at all. I will say, where can people find the information on these on this author?
She has a book, and I'll try to have the name of it next time that we're on, so people, if they're interested in learning about it, because it's a book I've had for a number of years, and I really like her technique.
Yeah, this is really great.
Mhm. And then I also like to look at the yearly lunar phase. The new moon in Aquarius was on February 17th of 26 at 28 degrees Aquarius, and we're at the full moon of Aquarius at 6 degrees Aquarius. So these lunar phases can play out in monthly increments, yearly increments, or over a 3-year period. So it gives you a lot of different ways to work with the moon. And I always recommend, if you want to start working with the moon changes sign every 2.5 days, is get a calendar or some way to journal, even if it's 3 words about how that day went. And then if you do it on an astrological calendar, it'll tell you what sign the moon is in, but you could also look it up and do it yourself to say what sign the moon is in and how it changes. And lots of times after you collect, um, for 3 to 5 months, you can kinda see, "Oh, I'm more tired during this when the moon's in this sign than this sign," and it won't be the same for everybody. Everybody has a different way to use it, so that's my suggestion.
Sounds good.
And I think, yeah, we're at, um so I'm gonna put us here. So I want to thank all of you that have joined us live and all that come back and watch at a future time. Justin, I want to thank you for joining me for this full moon episode. And I look forward to having you on again soon.
Well, thank you for having me.
And we're going to finish up with a few more slides here. Justin and I both do in-person and Zoom consultations, so you can reach out to us if you're interested in that. We have newsletters and YouTube channels, so we always appreciate you subscribing, liking our show, and coming back and telling all your friends about us. Justin, go ahead and with your slide.
Yeah, and again, the best way to get a hold of me is through my email, and you can find a lot of my stuff on my YouTube. That is my main webpage now. Is my YouTube, and it's at Astrological Yogi, and you can find me on there. I also write a weekly horoscope for the Port Townsend Leader newspaper here on the Olympic Peninsula, and you can find that online.
Thank you. And then we haven't done this for a couple months. Are we going to bring the new moon outlook back?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Soon. The
Yep.
new moon. And there's many shows in the archives, and Justin joins me for several shows, and with the Cosmic Connections team, he's part of that. And then I have the Astrology Star Sisters shows. So lots to choose from. So come back and watch again soon. We appreciate you. And I want to thank our sponsor, Astro Peregrine Software, an astrology software for Mac and Windows. And you can find out more information at astroperegrine.com. Justin, thanks again for joining me. It's been great as usual. I always enjoy having you on. And we're gonna sign off and say goodbye for now. So we'll see you on Sunday. We're gonna have the monthly forecast on Sunday. Justin will be back joining me.